MetaZoo just sent out a new print, and after looking at it a little bit more, I'm pretty confident that it actually holds some secrets. Hello casters, my name is Turmentic, and it is with so much joy that I welcome you back to Cryptid Theory. Now today what we're going to be talking about is the print that Metatwo sent out. There's a full live stream that I went over the entire print. You can see it right there behind me. Went over in great detail talking about each of the beasties, things like that, trying to point out things. But of course, me being me, I'm going to keep looking at it afterwards. And I have put some ideas together based off of what I have seen. The big thing we're going to be talking about today are the 5 silhouetted beasties that are in the background of this print. Now, who are they? What do they represent? Those are all things that we're going to cover in this, but today we're going to specifically talk about the 5 shadowy figures that are on this print. Now, taking a look at the 5, 4 of them, in my opinion, are super easy to be able to pinpoint who they are and what they represent. The last one, though, I'm going to save to the end because I'm really excited about it, and it kind of got some gears turning. But we'll go over each of the 5, we'll talk about what they are, what they represent, what they actually could mean because of them being silhouetted, and I'm like I said, I'm really excited. The first one I want to talk about is a fan favorite. Everybody loves him, and it's Mothman. You can see it's half of Mothman actually peeking out from behind this tree. And the reason I wanted to make this video was to actually go over what the 5 were, but also if they're silhouetted out, I have a theory that I think they're going to either be main protagonists or antagonists in the new story. Now, with Metatwo acquiring the original MetaZoo, we don't know if they're going to stick to the lore and the story that Mike Waddell was actually creating. So I actually kind of really like the idea that the 5 of these are silhouetted because they're actually going to be main antagonists or protagonists in the new storyline, like I was just saying. Mothman has notoriously always been, in my opinion, an antagonist. He is someone who is looked at as a villain, even if he's not the one that is actually causing the destruction to wherever he shows up. He's a precursor, he is an omen. So, in my opinion, this is showing that Mothman still is probably going to be one of the main antagonists of the new storyline that Metatwo is actually producing. This next one, everybody knows, that looks just like Sasquatch, Bigfoot if you will. Now, it really, in my opinion, it gives off hardcore Orange Eyes vibes. And there's nothing that actually would dictate whether it is or not, if it's Orange Eyes or whatever, but just for some reason, the silhouetted figure of Bigfoot like that just reminds me of Orange Eyes. And we know from the original storyline that Bigfoot or Sasquatches, they don't have to particularly all be good or all be bad, because Orange Eyes was one of the villains, I would say, from the original storyline. But then you have other cute cuddly cards like Chibi Bigfoot and other stuff like that where they don't really give off that menacing vibe. Now, also, I want to point out there are many different types of Sasquatches. You have Bigfoot, you have the Abominable Snowman, you have a ton of different ones that actually are Sasquatches that are still part of that family. Bigfoot is one of the most well-known cryptids all across the world. There have been sightings of Bigfoot all across the planet, all different countries. And so for him to actually be one of the silhouetted ones, in my opinion, it could go either way. He could either be an antagonist if they're actually going more of the Orange Eyes route, or he could actually be a protagonist trying to help whoever our characters are, whatever the story is, move forward. I really like, though, that they've put Bigfoot in the same category as Mothman, in my opinion, because that's what the silhouettes to me tell me that these are all on the same level. And I'm really excited that they actually have Bigfoot in the same area, the same space, if you will, as Mothman, because there is so much Bigfoot lore from across the planet, from all different countries. Each country, each area has its own Bigfoot or Sasquatch story. And so it's really exciting that they're actually putting him right up there with Mothman. Now the next one might actually surprise some people, but the one up top is Piasa Bird. And according to the legend of Piasa Bird in my opinion has always been a villain. I know with some of the art that we've actually had before in the past for it, it doesn't really maybe look that menacing sometimes. It looks maybe a little playful, kind of like how the Hodag looks actually in this print. But the Piasa Bird has always notoriously been a villain. The legend, just to sum it up really quickly, it was basically a man-eater. It terrorized Indian villages, and one of the chiefs of a village decided that they were actually going to dip their arrows in poison and fire it at Piasa Bird. So he used himself as bait, and everybody else in the tribe actually fired their arrows. They were able to actually hit it, and it fell into the water, the river that's underneath where the mountain is, and it disappeared. The mural that's actually in Illinois was built as a reminder of what the Piasa Bird was, and Indians were notorious for actually walking by and shooting an arrow at it to make sure that it was still actually there inside of the mountain. So it wasn't particularly imprisoned in the mountain, if you will. That was something that kind of, I feel, MetaZoo kind of pulled away and kind of was trying to actually cement with the old lore. But Piasa Bird was notoriously always, in my opinion, some sort of a villain. This next one, in my opinion, has ties to Sasquatch as well, too. This is Minnesota Iceman or Alpha Minnesota Iceman. I'm not entirely positive. There's two different ones based off of the old cards that we actually had from the old base set. Now, Minnesota Iceman, people weren't sure if it was a Neanderthal, if it was a caveman, if it was actually a lot of people thought it was actually a Bigfoot that had been frozen. So again, with him being silhouetted out, that could be, I would feel, more of an antagonist versus a protagonist. Now, there isn't a bunch of information out about the Minnesota Iceman. He was toured around for a while, actually, once he was actually found. They did eventually find out that it was a hoax, but in my opinion, he could be some sort of an antagonist in this as well. I don't really, for some reason, I just don't see him being helpful to whatever character, story, things like that. It just seems like he actually might be a little spiteful, he might be a little mean. And again, that goes back to what we were talking about before when we were talking about Bigfoot, where there's so many different types of Sasquatches that some of them could be good, some of them could be bad. Our traditional Bigfoot could be good, whereas Minnesota Iceman could actually turn out to be bad. Abominable Snowman could actually turn out to be a villain. Stuff like that. Ohio Grassman, I believe, was actually even designated as a Sasquatch in old MetaZoo, Retro Zoo. So it's interesting that he is one of the ones that's silhouetted out, because I wouldn't have actually imagined them using him as some sort of a main character, but again, he's with the likes of Mothman, with Bigfoot, with Piasa Bird. So I'm going to go out on a limb and actually say that Minnesota Iceman is here, and he is literally going to be an antagonist somehow moving forward. Okay, I gotta take a moment, because this last one I am over the moon excited about. When I did the live stream, I was really confused about this one, because he was up in a tree, he had a staff. I was joking around with that it could be Jack Frost because of the hair. I even mentioned a couple times, though, that it just, for some reason, reminded me of the game, the Black Myth Wukong, the one that just came out talking about Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, a very, very big character in Chinese literature. Well, I didn't notice this during the live stream, because I guess I didn't zoom in on it. But when I was taking close-up pictures of each of the silhouettes, I noticed that this one had red eyes. And I was like, wait a minute, time out. Jack Frost, who we were thinking during the live stream that's who it was, wouldn't have red eyes. But then I started noticing more of the features, like the hair and the arms and the staff itself, which we've never seen that staff before. And so, for the first time in a long time, I have a theory that I think that is Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Chinese literature. I don't want to get into the full backstory of Sun Wukong. If that is a video that you guys would like, let me know in the comments, and I will actually make it, because it is a long story. From actually trying to figure out last night how to sum it up, And there's no real good way of summing that up. You need to actually tell the story in its entirety. Most people actually know Sun Wukong from the book Journey to the West. That's an old Chinese book that actually is one of like the most famous pieces of Chinese literature that has ever been created. And it basically goes into the entire birth, if you will, of Sun Wukong, from the stone that he actually was created from all the way up through that entire journey. It's an amazing story. If you've actually never had a chance to look into it, look into it. But it was just funny because it was the game Black Myth Wukong that made me start really thinking, wait a minute, this isn't Jack Frost, this is something else. And it's, in my opinion, if I'm right and this is Sun Wukong, it is absolutely insanely exciting, because this is showing the globalness that Metatwo wants. This is showing how they're going to start in base set, I'm hoping, pulling cryptids from all over the planet. Because if you look at every other picture, every other cryptid that's inside of this print, every single one of them, except for that one that's silhouetted in the tree, we have seen at some point, somehow, some sort of artwork for it. And that is the only one that just looked out of place. It looked odd. So, like I said, I think that Sun Wukong, and I think this is the beginning of what we're seeing of Metatwo actually bringing in more of a global audience, bringing in more people than just the North American base where it pretty much was set for the most part. I mean, everything from Cryptid Nation up through Native, for the most part, there were a handful of cards that weren't, but the vast majority of it was all North American based. And so if we're actually seeing cryptids outside of North America from base set, which I'm pretty sure is something Charlie said in the interview that he either did with Dean on the Hobby Podcast, or the interview that he did with Nick. Both interviews I would definitely recommend you going and checking out. I'll leave links in the description so you can. But there is a very big focus and drive to make MetaZoo, the new MetaZoo, more global. And that is something that is needed, because we can't just have a North American community. We need to actually have a global community. And if they were to use Sun Wukong, like I think they are, that's huge. That's huge. Like I said, it is one of the most revered characters in all of Chinese literature. And it actually is exciting too, because it shows that they're not afraid to touch on some of the most dearest creatures, deities, cryptids across the planet. And as long as they actually do it in a respectable way, they actually show that they actually care about these creatures, these characters, these deities, I'm excited. Because it will be able to bring in more people into the community. More people will actually pay attention to what's going on. Because again, it goes back to that personal lore. It goes back to that personal connection that people have with these creatures, with these characters. One of the big questions would be, is Sun Wukong an antagonist or a protagonist? And that is a very valid question. And at the moment, I would have to side with a protagonist versus a villain, just because of the history of Sun Wukong. Now, he is a trickster, he is mischievous, but I don't know if I see him actually being on the villain front, if you will. Now, there are a few other Easter eggs that I am going to cover in a different video, just exciting things. Because there are some differences that I noticed also from stuff that they've spoiled versus stuff that's actually on that postcard. So sit back, hopefully that video will be out sometime within the next couple days, up to a week or so. But yeah, just to recap real quick, the 5 silhouetted beasties that we actually see on this print, I believe, are either protagonists or antagonists. And I think the one that we're not entirely sure who it is Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. Like I said though, if you actually want to know the full story of Sun Wukong and you want me to make a video going over it, leave a comment in the description and I will start working on that. Of course, it is a lengthy story though, so I want to do it justice. But I want to make it if you guys actually want to hear what the story is. But my name is Turmentic. I hope you have enjoyed this. I am extremely excited to be back actually making these theory videos again. Cannot wait until we actually get more information on what the story and the lore direction is for Metatwo. Hopefully we should get something soon. I know that the base set, the new base set I should say, actually releases Q1. Metatwo also just put out their initial con schedule for Collecticons, so definitely check out their Instagram, join the Discord. I'll leave all those links in the description. It is going to be an exciting year for Zoo. It is going to be an exciting year for MetaZoo fans, and I cannot wait to continue covering everything MetaZoo into 2025. But like I said, my name is Turmentic. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful evening.